Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day to all the panel and the viewer. My name is Najmi Bin Mohd Zaini from the School of Mechanical Engineering. Today I will present my final year project proposal, which is to develop mineral water pump. I would like to thank to my supervisor ZAINAL ABIDIN KAMARUL BAHARIN for the guidance throughout the process to complete the proposal. This slide contains 7 parts that will be discussed in this presentation, which is introduction, literature review, problem statement, objective, scope of the project, limitation, methodology, and expected result. Firstly, the introduction for this slide. This part I will explain to you the function of the pump, the type of pump, and how the pump transfers the water. The manual-operated water pump uses human power and mechanical advantage to move fluid from one place to another. They are widely used in every country in the world for a variety of industry, for example, marine, irrigation, and leisure activities. There are many examples of manual water pump being used nowadays. For example, hand pump and rotary pump. The pump works when the air is forced out of the way when the moving part, that is piston and diaphragm, begin to move, that cause the pace of air generate a particle vacuum to lift water from the tank. Next is the literature review. Pump takes a lot of energy and effort to pump the appreciate amount of water, which means they are unable to fulfill water demand, especially when demand is strong, due to their low capacity resulting in a tank lying at the pump location. The volumetric efficiency, which is the proportional of swept volume that pumped is through, is a function of piston diameter and number of strokes per minute. Thirdly, pumps are chosen based on the following criteria, that are the type of fluid to be moved, capacity required, lift required, space constraining, the likelihood of running dry, and whether it needs to be self-priming. Finally, the ergonomic design for the water pump could reduce the likelihood of pain in other parts of the body as well as injury near misses. Next is the problem statement. The current manual water pump requires a lot of force to pump the water because do not use suitable mechanism designed to pump the water. Next, many manual water pumps do not have capability to pump the water at a very high pace due to low vacuum pressure inside the cylinder pump. And lastly, most of the manual water pumps produce low water discharge and flow rate due to the lack efficiency of the pump. Next is the objective. For the first point, to come up with the best concept design for the manual water pump based on the research and observation that have been done. Next, to fabricate the pump based on the best concept design that have been chosen. Lastly, to come up with the experimental and analyze the performance of the new developed water pump. Next, let's move to the scope of the project. Firstly, to develop a manual water pump that uses a small amount of force. Secondly, improve the flow rate for the water discharge. And lastly, design and fabricate more sustainable manual water pump. Next is the limitation for this project. Firstly, need to find a place that receives constant amount of rainwater. This pump will pump the water from the tank that has been harvesting the rainwater. If the place receives a few rainwater, water that will discharge from the pump will be decreased. Next, limited time and space for using the lab and the workshop. This is because many students will use the lab for your project and class. Proper plan and schedule need to be done in order to use the lab and the workshop. And lastly, the capability of the pump to lift the water at a high place. This is because the distance and the height between the pump and the tank will affect the head of the pump to transfer the water. Next is the methodology for this project. For the first phase is an initial study which is focusing on gathering information and find related topic based on the article to get an idea to start the project. Next, the next phase is computational design, which is focusing on generate concept design for the project and try to choose which design is the best before start to fabricate. The next phase is the physical development, which is to come up with the fabrication process and tool before can start to build the pump. And finally, experimental and analysis, which is to come up with experimental method to test the performance of the water pump. This is the final concept design that have been chosen for the developmental water pump. The pump is a single active pump which is working fluid acts on the one side of the piston only. This pump uses lever mechanism to pump the water by pushing the foot pedal down in order to move the plunger. The diagram also shows the part for the manual water pump. In this diagram also we can see that the blue arrow is representing the flow rate of the flow of the water, and the yellow arrow representing the mechanism movement for the manual water pump. Next is the expected result. Firstly, to make sure the design for the manual water pump is more ergonomic. This is because it will prevent from injury and makes the pump more easy to use for the pupil. Next, pump should be capable to lift the water at a high place. By reducing the size of the pump cylinder and diameter of the pipe, it should improve the head for the pump. Lastly, to come up with a suitable mechanism that can reduce amount of force to pump the water. If the amount of force be reduced, it could be easily for the people to use to pump the water, especially for the kid to pump the water. Next, let's see the relationship between the pressure and the volume. The relationship between the pressure and the volume is when the volume for the pump cylinder increases, it could reduce the pressure inside the water tank. When the volume decreases, the pressure inside the cylinder will increase. Based on the graph, we can see that the design for the cylinder pump need to be reduced in order to increase the suction pressure. Next, let's see the relationship between the head of the pump, flow rate, and pressure for the pump. This graph shows when the pressure increases, the flow rate of the water will increase. The graph also shows when the head of the pump increases, the flow rate of the water will drop. And we can see also that when the pressure drops, the head of the water also drops too. This graph will give a clear view what type of a manual water pump need to be designed and fabricated for this project. I hope this video could give a clear view about my project. That's all for me. Thank you for watching my video.